for that. We're going to give you some information about the UC's retirement. We're going to give you some best practices about how you can transition your life into retirement. We'll talk about your health benefits. We'll talk about Social Security, and we'll try to do our best to answer your questions along the way. Our goals are to identify to-dos for you. So hopefully you can leave these sessions and have a checklist and have a good understanding of where you stand. And also what are the things that are upcoming. If you're retiring this year, what are the steps that you need to do immediately? If you're retiring in future years, how do you balance that retirement need with your current role, and how can you best prepare yourself? Our experts will give you some strategies to do that, and Julianne and myself, as well as our experts that we bring in, will provide a lot of resources for you throughout the course of this session. So our program sessions are broken down as follows, and we certainly hope that you've signed up for all of them. If you haven't, we will send a follow-up email that I'll talk a little bit about later on, that'll have the sessions to sign up for, or give you a link back to the page where you sign up. I know it's a bit funky this year when you sign up, because you essentially have to do it twice with both LMS and Zoom. The LMS piece is important for your if you need to show proof of where you were to campus, we want to make sure you sign up through LMS. And with Zoom, the reason we want you to sign up is we have your full first and last name this way. We run into an issue where we just have people's Zoom name, and it's difficult for us to tell who you might be if we don't have your full name on the screen. So this week, Don Goldberg's going to walk us through UCRP income options. Next week, Garen Solbach and Erica Castillo are going to walk us through retiree health benefits, and Don Goldberg will come back to talk about offboarding. Spencer Richards and Kimberly Becker from Fidelity will talk through Social Security and financial planning and retirement for us in week 3. And week 4, Dr. Carol Kirschnitt will come talk to us a little bit about work-life transitions. So how these sessions work, and I do want to get out in front of this because sometimes we don't go the full 3 hours that this is scheduled for. We judge each session the best we can and try to give you as much content as possible. However, sometimes we may end 15 to 30 minutes early, and I just wanted to make you aware of that. You can let your supervisor know, if that's a person you're working with, that these sessions vary depending on Q&A length. And we do our best to try to fill the time, but also want to be respectful of your time and not keep you longer than we have to. After each session, you're going to be sent a survey that helps us get your outstanding questions answered, but it also gives us some basic information. The survey this week, admittedly, will probably take you 5 to 7 minutes. Normally, it'll be 1 to 2 tops. But it's really important that we have you fill those out, because it gives us an idea of not only who's in the room, but what the value of the information we're sharing is and what we can tweak for future sessions in this year's cohort, but also in future years. And one thing I did want to note is your attendance is not shared with your supervisor in this session. So we're not reaching out to, whoever your supervisor is on campus and letting them know that, hey, this person was here, they might be thinking about retirement. We like to consider this room a circle of trust. So if you are in the retirement process and you don't want folks to know, and you know someone else who's in here, you can reach out to that person and feel free to do so, but please don't, share broadly other folks that you see in the room, because everybody's situation is different. And sometimes retirement can be a little bit more of a stickier subject depending on the department or unit you're in. And a lot of folks just like to keep this information to themselves, but also join us. So I'll talk a little bit about the Retiree Center to give you an overview of who we are. So we are an arm of Alumni and Affiliate Relations, and currently we represent over 14,000 retirees, emeriti, and their spouses. We have a physical center within the Walter Buehler Alumni Center out on the south end of campus. And we're in the process of an office move at UC Davis Health. We used to be located on the health system as well, a couple days a week at Betty Irene Moore Hall, but we're currently looking for a new location, and we should have that lined up by February. Unfortunately, Omicron is making things a little bit more difficult on that office move, but we will get it done, and we're confident we'll have a space at the health system yet again. Our staff consists of myself and Julianne. So we're a two-person show currently. We do hope to expand our roster this summer, which we're really excited about. But for now, it's been the two of us actually since last January, and we're making do. But we are running a little bit lighter than we had been in the past. And like I said, we're looking forward to expanding back out. So Julianne and I are available to you via email. So my email and Julianne's email should be CC'd on every email that comes out from the Retiree Center email. So if you want to reach out to us, you're more than welcome. You can also contact us directly in the chat today. That's an easy way to get a hold of us and ask the questions you might have. If you have emailed in the past day or two, we've been feverishly preparing for this as well as going through some board meetings, and we had an event yesterday. So it may take us a half second longer to get back, but normally we're fairly responsive, and usually you can count on a response within 24 hours from our office. So where we've been since March 2020, the Retiree Center has always been in person. Its events have always been in person. It's relied a lot on in-person appointments and meetings. It's been a place where we've invited people to just drop in and kind of check in on us. But that all changed in March 2020. And we've been virtually serving our retirees and maritime spouses. We're primarily reachable via email and phone. Prior to being sent back home for January, we did have an office presence in Davis 5 days a week. So we typically do have folks there, but our office hours were shortened up. So it's 12 to 4 and by appointment. So if you get through all 4 of these sessions and still have some questions that you think Julianne or I might be able to help, there is an opportunity to make an appointment on our website and be able to meet with us. We typically run 2 to 3 events per month. Those can include lectures, book clubs, Zoom workshops, virtual tours, etc. So what do we do? A retiree center is not something that most people are familiar with, but we serve as a central resource to UC Davis retirees, and for that matter, employees like yourselves. We connect retirees and employees to the right resource. We provide programming, support, and advocacy to the retiree population. We offer specialized program opportunities focused on a successful retirement, just like this one. We partner with Transportation Services and the Office of the Provost to offer free parking to all retirees, which is a great perk, so you'll save some money there in retirement. We provide support and direct oversight to the UC Davis Retirees Association and the UC Davis Emeriti Association, which we'll talk a little bit more about as these sessions move along. We serve as the office of record and campus connection for all retirees, meaning if someone retires, we know about it and we're the ones who are notified and make the appropriate changes and how we can connect with you. We advocate for retiree and emeriti health and well-being. So I work heavily with the UC Retirement Administration Service Center out of Oakland and their leadership team to make sure you all are taken care of. If you run into issues during your retirement, you can reach out to me and I can serve as an advocate on your behalf and help you kind of move your retirement forward. The hope is that everything goes smoothly, but if it doesn't, we're here for you in that. Other instances, if changes in open enrollment don't go as planned, folks may reach out to us. If a spouse passes away, we provide some support for survivors out of our office. Basically, we do everything we can to make sure our retirees and emeriti are taken care of to the best of our ability. What we don't do, so Julianne and myself, we don't service your benefits. So when you retire and you submit your paperwork, I'm not hitting the button that says how much you get paid. I'm not approving your benefits or making changes to your plans. We provide support but can't actually access your individual profiles. The phone number there is listed for the Retirement Administration Service Center. It's 800-888-8267. Right now, I will say they've got a lot of phone calls backed up from open enrollment. And that likely will undo itself here by the end of the month. But if you do have heavy retirement questions for the RASC and you're retiring July 1st, like many, I'd recommend waiting until the beginning of February to make that phone call. And also using the self-service features on UC Raise, so retirement@yourservice.ucop.edu is extremely helpful, and Don will cover some of those today. So talking about our associations, the Emeriti Association, the Retirees Association provide a welcoming community to new and experienced retirees alike. So we've got retirees that retired this past year and some that retired up to 40 years ago. They advocate on behalf of retirees. They represent retirees on campus committees and task forces. They provide financial support and leadership to the Retiree Center. So we lean on our associations to help us make decisions that impact all of our retirees, as well as help with our programming. They sponsor monthly talks and quarterly meetings. And then on the Emeriti Association side, they have this really cool thing called the Video Records Project, where they sit down with Emeriti of the university and basically record an interview where they talk about their work and their time with UC Davis. And on the Retirees Association side, they're heavily involved in sponsoring 2 staff scholarships per year. Some other retiree perks, you get a retiree ID card, which actually allows you access to the library. As mentioned, you get that complimentary retiree parking. And then there are discounts at campus venues. Unfortunately, I forgot to take the campus recreation piece out of this. We don't get a discount there anymore. So apologies for that. And sorry for the misinformation on the slide. All right. So enough of me talking for a second. I want to give you an opportunity to answer a few questions. And what I'm going to do with that is open up this poll. It has 3 questions, and I just want you to answer them in rapid fire so that we can get an idea of who's in the room. So let me go ahead and do that now, and just at your earliest convenience, please fill that out and then hit submit at the end of the poll. All right, your answers flowing in now. All right, gonna give it 30 more seconds here. All right, so we got 160 plus responses. So I'm gonna stop there and I'm gonna share. Are you all seeing this on your screen? Give me a quick thumbs up if you can. Awesome. So how many years, the first question was how many years until you intend to retire? So we've got a good distribution here. Shout out to the one person who's 11 plus years away from retirement. I'm with you, so I appreciate that. We've got some folks in the 6 to 10 year bracket, about 15%, 4 to 5, 2 to 3, and this year are pretty well distributed. Those folks that are retiring this year, obviously just pay extra close attention because you're ready to rock as soon as we're about a month past this. That's when it's going to be time if you're retiring on July 1st. And let's see, a quick question. If you aren't on mute, if you wouldn't mind throwing yourself on mute, apparently there's a couple folks that are having some issues with background noise. And it very well could be me, so I apologize if it is, but if you aren't on mute, if you wouldn't mind doing that for me. So the next question was how many years of service do you currently have? So we've got some folks in the 1 to 5 bracket, but if you look at it, it looks like that 16 to 20 sort of is the sweet spot, and then we sort of bend out from there. Thank you to the 6 folks in this room that have served the university in any capacity 36 years plus. That's awesome. That's amazing. And normally what we do if we meet in person for these sessions is we would have you stand up or raise a hand depending on how many years of service you have. And I can tell you the most I've seen was actually 50 plus, which is pretty insane when you think about it. That's a long time to dedicate to one cause, but 36 plus is kind of where I draw the line of, wow, you've really lived a UC Davis life, and that's amazing. And we're happy for you and looking forward to helping you get to that next step. How much you know about the UC retirement system? Congratulations, Karen. That's awesome. 42 years. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. How much do you know about the UC retirement system? So 14% of us know almost nothing. The bulk of us fall into the little bit category, which is pretty typical. Nobody is ready to retire tomorrow with their knowledge of retirement. And then some folks have a little bit or a decent understanding. So we appreciate that. And that's what we're here for, is to be able to help you through that. So I've got a couple more slides to run through, and then we'll bring Don on to give you all of the most important information, which is the stuff he's sharing today. All right. So there are some common questions that come in before these sessions, and you're going to have a chance to add to these in the survey that goes out after this session, so that we can go over this once more next week. But the questions are typically, can I retire a little bit earlier than I was thinking I might? How do our primary benefits work in retirement? So pension and health, and those are definitely be answered the next, well, mostly today, but next week your health benefits will be really explained. What if I move out of state? How do I maximize my Social Security? That's our third session. Do sick and vacation time payout? We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through today's session and also next week. And can I access my work email in retirement? These are some common things that we will cover. So retirement's ahead for all of you, and we're looking forward to helping you get there. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Don Goldberg. Don works in benefits with UC Davis Health. And if you don't know Don, he has been someone who's helped with UC Davis benefits for a long time, but as a member of the UC Retirement Administration Service Center. So Don worked at Davis in the past, and then went to the Retirement Administration Service Center, and we've got to bring him home this last summer. And it's been awesome having Don available on campus. And Don, we're so happy you're back, and I'm gonna kick it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. I'll start off by saying I'm very glad to be back for sure. It beats commuting to Oakland 3 hours each way that I did for 8 years. So being back at UC Davis Health System, UC Davis, has been great. So good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great Friday morning so far. Today, we're going to go over the UC retirement plan. Next week, Garen Solbach, who is the healthcare facilitator, he is going to go over retiree health, and he is great. So you definitely want to attend next week's session as well. So today, I'm going to be going over a lot of information that can be confusing at times. So if you do have any questions along the way, you could submit them through the chat feature. And then at the end of today's session, we'll go over as many questions as possible. We will have a 10-minute break in the middle, so you do have a chance to stretch as you go along. And basically, I got a lot of information that is very important, good information. So I'm going to get started. So today we're going to go over the UC retirement plan. We'll talk about the monthly retirement income, as well as the lump sum cash out. We'll talk about the retirement payment versus the employee paycheck. And I really like this section because there's a lot of information here that you typically will not find in a handbook. And I think it's very useful information. We'll talk about other sources of retirement income. Retiree health benefits will be next week. We'll talk about the retirement process and once you are retired. So now we're going to talk about the UC retirement plan. And to be eligible for UCRP benefits, you have to be in a position of 50% time for a year or more. If you were not hired into this position initially, you can become eligible once you have worked 1,000 or more hours in a 12-month period, or if you're an academic appointee after you have worked 750 hours. It takes 5 years of service credit to be vested. To be vested means you are eligible for future retirement benefits. The earliest age that you could retire is age 50. If you are in the 2013 to 2016 tiers, the earliest age you could retire is age 55. Also, you can retire if you are an inactive member. An inactive member is somebody who has 5 years of service. They left the University of California, but they have not retired. Those are called inactive members. And inactive members will come up again when we talk about the inactive cost of living adjustment later. So your UCRP benefits depend upon your membership classification. We have the 1976 tier coordinated with Social Security and the 1976 tier not coordinated with Social Security. So a very common question we get is, what retirement tier am I in? So if you were hired before July 1st, 2013, you are in the 1976 tier. Coordinated with Social Security means you are paying into Social Security. So if you were hired after 1976, you are paying into Social Security unless you are a police officer or firefighter. We also do have safety tier members, police officers and firefighters, and they do not pay into Social Security. Then as of July 1st, 2013, we've had a lot of changes to the retirement plan. We now have the 2013 tier. We have the 2013 modified tier. We have the 2016 tier. And now we have something called multi-tier members, people who have worked in one retirement tier, they left the university, they came back, and now they are in a different retirement tier, and they are considered multi-tier members. So our UCRP benefits, we are a IRS qualified defined benefit plan. Our benefits are not based on how well the stock market's doing. It's not based on how much we've contributed. It is based on a defined benefit formula. It is based on the age when we retire, years of UCRP service credit, and our highest average plan compensation salary. And we're going to go over these factors in a moment. So your age factor times your service credit times your HAPC gives you what is called the basic retirement income. And when you go to the UC Raise at your service retirement estimator, you are looking at the basic retirement income, and we'll talk about that later as well. So now we're going to go over the age factors. And if you are in the 1976 tier, the 2013 modified tier, the earliest age you can retire is age 50, and your age component will be maximized once you have reached age 60. If you are in the 2013, 2016 tiers, the earliest age that you can retire is age 55, and your age component will be maximized at age 65. Next, we're going to talk about service credit, and you earn service credit based on your percentage on pay status in a UCRP eligible position. So if you work 50% time, you are earning 50% service credit. If you work 100% time, you are earning 100% service credit. If you are in a 80% position, but you work 100% time, you are earning 100% service credit. If you are not being paid by the University of California, you are not earning service credit. So a very common question, and then Kyle brought it up earlier, is what happens to my sick leave and my vacation time when I retire? So unused sick leave converts to service credit when you take the monthly retirement income. All hours are accounted for. Your unused sick leave gets divided by 2,000, and that will increase your service credit when you take the monthly retirement income. So for example, if you have 1,000 hours of service credit, you divide that by 2,000, and that will give you a 0.5 more of service credit. It does not change your retirement date. It does not change your separation date. Separation date is your last day on pay status. In regards to vacation time, unused vacation is paid out on your last paycheck. Next, we're going to go over the HAPC, the salary, and we use your highest consecutive 36 months for your HAPC. For most people, that is their last 3 years of working, but it's not always that case for some people. If you've worked here 25 years and years 18, 19, and 20 are your highest earning years, we will always use your highest consecutive 36 months. If you take a lower paying position, your HAPC will not go down because, again, we will use your highest consecutive 36 months. The way we calculate your HAPC is based on your full-time equivalent pay for your regular and normal appointment. So whatever your hourly wage is, we times that as if you are working 100% time. And I think that's important to know too, because if in your last few years, if you're looking at reducing your time, but you don't want to do that because you want to have higher earnings going into retirement time, then this is important to know, because if you go from 100% time to 50% time, that does not affect this HAPC because we do use the full-time equivalent. It will affect, like we talked about, the service credit because you are only on pay status 50% time, but it does not affect the HAPC. Also included in the HAPC are administrative stipends and shift differentials are included. Now, if you are in the 1976 tier, coordinated paying into Social Security, and again, the 1976 tier is hired before July 1st, 2013, your HAPC is reduced by $133. So not everyone knows this, and we used to get a lot of questions at the Retirement Administration Center. People will call us up and say, hey, I'm looking at the retirement estimator and the HAPC, my salary is off by over $100. And if I'm doing my math correct, it's about $133. And that would be true because there is this reduction. However, there is a temporary Social Security supplement that restores this reduction until age 65. So now what is not included in the HAPC is overtime, summer salary, and negotiated annual additions. Being that the UC retirement plan is a IRS qualified defined benefit plan, there are limits to how much compensation we can use for retirement purposes. So if you were hired before July 1st, 1994, the most salary we could use in a given year for retirement purposes is $430,000 per year. If you were hired between July 1st, 1994 and June 30th, 2016, the most salary we could use for retirement purposes is $290,000 per year. If you are in the new 2016 tier, there is a PEPR limit. PEPR is Public Employee Pension Reform Act limit, and that limit is $128,059. And these limits are adjusted from year to year. Also, there is a limit to the pension, and the UC plan can pay out no more than 100% of your HAPC. And this needs a little bit of explaining. So typically you would get 100% of your HAPC if you had 40 years of service, you were over age 60, you would be entitled to 100% of your HAPC. The reason why I think this is also important to know is I've definitely come across a good handful or two of people who've worked for UC. They had over 40 years of service, but during the course of their UC employment, they were married and they got divorced. So in a case where somebody was married for 20 years and they got divorced and 10 years went to the ex-spouse. So say, for instance, they had 40 years, they were married for 20, 10 years went to the ex-spouse. So now the ex-spouse has 10 years, our UC person has 30 years. So the university is paying 100% of the HAPC. What people have tried to do was go, okay, I lost X amount of years in the divorce settlement. I'm going to work X amount of years more to make up for those lost years. And I've definitely had to tell a couple of people that unfortunately that isn't going to work because UC can only pay out 100% of your HAPC. And they would typically get disappointed, mad, and say, "You mean I've been working for nothing?" And I would say, "No, not for nothing. UC was paying you. You had the opportunity to spend more time at the university, hang out with your coworkers, participate in morning rush hour traffic." And typically at that point, they would retire shortly thereafter. Also, UC, again, being an IRS qualified defined benefit plan, can only pay out so much money from the pension. So say, for instance, a person earned $400,000 per year, but the plan can only pay out through UCRP $280,000 per year. You will get that $400,000 per year, $280,000 from UCRP. The additional $120,000 will come from what is called the 415M restoration plan. So now we're going to talk about the monthly retirement income. So basically over here, this is a way to show how to manually calculate your retirement estimates. And this is an example of someone age 60, they got 20 years of service, they are entitled to 50%. And like I just mentioned a couple of moments earlier, if they had 40 years, they would be entitled to 100% of their HAPC. They are in the 1976 tier, so there is a reduction to their HAPC. However, they are age 60, so they are entitled to the supplement, so they are going to earn X amount of dollars. We never have to calculate it. I've been here over 15 years. I've never calculated my HAPC, my estimates this way, because we do have the retirement estimator. And the retirement estimator is a very, very valuable tool. And I'm definitely going to spend a couple minutes here on the retirement estimator, because I think, one, not everybody understands what they're seeing when they come to this page. And two, you actually have the ability to customize your estimates. So now let's talk about, this would be the front page of the retirement estimator. And they give you estimates at, in this case, fictitious example, 53, 58, 63, 5-year increments. And what's really important to know in this is they are showing you the basic retirement income. The basic retirement income provides you the most money, the retiree, on a monthly basis. However, if you are in the 1976 tier and you have an eligible survivor, they would get 25% of the basic retirement income. So that's built into the program. We'll talk about that coming up. But you may say, hey, I want to give more than 25% to my spouse, my domestic partner, or I want to leave money to someone else. If that is the case, you are not taking the basic retirement income. And all these years, you're looking at these estimates, and these estimates won't apply to your specific situation because you are not choosing the basic retirement income. So that I think is important to know what you're looking at when you go to the estimator and what the basic retirement income is. Like we talked about earlier, there is that temporary Social Security supplement that is payable till age 65. And in this example, you could see the temporary Social Security supplement. Now, I'll talk more about the temporary Social Security supplement because that is, people have a lot of questions about it. The temporary Social Security supplement is payable till age 65. That's basically all you need to know. It's payable till age 65. People will say, what happens if I take Social Security at 67? Does this continue? It's payable till age 65. What happens if I take Social Security at 62? It's payable till age 65. That is the temporary Social Security supplement. It's called that, but it has nothing to do with when you take Social Security. And then there is the lump sum cash out. So you may have a choice, depending upon your retirement tier, of a monthly benefit or the lump sum cash out, but hopefully you know you don't get both. So next we're going to show, okay, before I go there, so now they've given you these examples, but you may not want to retire at 63. You may want to retire at 62. You may want to retire July 1st, 2022. So you want to create your own estimate. And now we'll go to the next screen. And here is where you can create your own retirement estimate. You could go in here, you could put in specific dates. If you are looking to retire this year, you want to put in July 1st, 2022, separation date, June 29th, 2022. So again, retirement date is July 1st, separation date is June 29, 2022 to qualify for the cost of living adjustments. Also, you may have a spouse, domestic partner, or you may want to leave money to a given child. So here is where you could put in your survivor contingent annuitant details. If you have a spouse, domestic partner, you could put in their name, date of birth, date of marriage, or date of partnership, and then you'll be able to see basically 5 different estimates, which we'll go over momentarily. So now we're going to go over something that very important, can be confusing, and I would say this. July 1st, every year there are cost of living adjustments. Statistically, throughout UC, most people do retire July 1st. I always say, I'm going to retire July 1st. I don't know what year, but it will be July 1st to take advantage and benefit from these cost of living adjustments. So they can be confusing, but hopefully I could explain it in a clear fashion. If there are any questions, we could talk about it later after and go over it in more detail. So the first COLA, so say for example, somebody's going to retire this year, July 1st, 2022. They put in the separation date, June 29, 2022. And if they are in the 1976 tier or a safety tier member, they will qualify for the inactive COLA. So the inactive COLA is only awarded on July 1st if you are inactive as of July 1st. That's why that June 29th date is important. So June 29th is your last day of work, last day on pay status. Now June 30th, you are inactive. So therefore, because you are inactive for one day, you now qualify for this inactive COLA, and that will typically, and we don't know what the cost of living adjustment will be for this year, that will increase your retirement by at least 2% this year. So people like that. People are like, hey, I miss a day of work and I get a 2% increase on my retirement forever. What happens if I miss 2 days, 3 days? Will I get 4%, 6%? Nope. It is that one, you don't get extra days and extra COLAs for missing more days. So you may say to yourself, why does the university do this? Why do they want me to miss a day of work so I could get more money? And the reality is this is called the inactive COLA. This was not made for us being active employees. This was made for inactive members. Inactive members are people who worked for UC. They had 5 years of service or more. They left, but they did not retire. So say, for instance, somebody left at age 40 and they had X amount of years of service, and they're going to retire at age 60. If we did not have this cost of living adjustment, when they retired, their pension would be greatly devalued over the 20-year period. So every year, UC gives an inactive COLA, which increases their HAPC / their retirement to keep up with inflation. So that basically is why they created the inactive COLA. to keep people's pensions current with inflation. However, us as active employees, we can benefit from it by being inactive for 1 day. So confusing, but hopefully it made some sense. So that's part one. Somebody retired this year, July 1st, 2022. They separated June 29th. Immediately, their retirement was increased. Now, the next year, there is the retirement COLA. So if you are retired 1 year or more as of July 1st, and if you retired July 1st, 2022, you would be eligible for the retirement COLA next year, July 1st, 2023. So basically, there are two COLAs that one can benefit from by retiring July 1st, immediately with the inactive COLA, and then you become eligible for the retirement COLA the following year, which would be 2023. Not to say that anybody would want to do it, but to show you how this would work. Say, for example, somebody wanted to retire August 1st for whatever reason. So now they missed out on the inactive COLA this year because they did not retire July 1st. Now, next year, come July 1st, 2023, they are not retired 1 full year as of July 1st because they retired August 1st, September 1st, whatever that may be. So their first COLA would be 2024. So basically, that's cost of living adjustments. Hopefully it's not that confusing, but again, it is an important day. Why July 1st is an important day that people do retire, and statistically, most people will retire July 1st. One little thing too that I think is important to know, if you created your retirement estimate right now and you put in July 1st, 2022, you put in a separation date of June 29th, 2022, the thing to remember is you will be eligible for the inactive COLA, but it will not show the inactive COLA right now on your estimate. So whatever that figure is, you can expect that it will be at least 2% more because of you would be eligible for the inactive COLA. So now we're going to talk about payment continuations after death. And the first one is called the post-retirement survivor continuance. That is for 1976 tier and safety tier members. And that goes to eligible survivors as dictated by the plan. Then the next one is contingent annuitant. This is available for all retirement tiers. This is done at retirement where you can name anyone contingent annuitant. Then there is the pre-retirement survivor income, where a certain percentage is paid out depending upon your eligible family members and your eligibility for retirement. And now we're going to get into these different survivor benefits. So the first one is the post-retirement survivor continuance, and this is paid out to eligible survivors. You don't name your eligible survivors, you either have them or you don't, and that we're going to go over what an eligible survivor is on the next screen. We did talk about this a little bit earlier, but if you are in the 1976 tier paying into Social Security, your eligible survivor would automatically, no reduction in your pension, would automatically get 25% of your basic retirement income. If you are not coordinated with Social Security or a safety tier member, your eligible survivor would receive 50% of your basic retirement income. Again, this provision is only available for those in the 1976 tier and safety tier members. Then, okay, so what is an eligible survivor? So it goes in this order. Again, you do not name an eligible survivor. You either have them or you don't. And it goes first to a spouse or domestic partner. And for your spouse or domestic partner to be eligible as a survivor, you had to be married or partnered at least 1 year or more prior to the retirement date, and you have to continue to be married or domestic partnered until the retiree passes away. If you do not have a spouse or domestic partner, it can go potentially to children. If you have a child who is 18 or 22, if they're a full-time student, they can be an eligible survivor. And then the next one is if you have a disabled child. And if that child is disabled, they can receive 25% of your basic retirement income. There is no reduction to the amount that you receive. And again, they would get this once you passed away, but you would have to, at the time of retirement, provide paperwork showing that the child was disabled. Then if you don't have a spouse or domestic partner, you don't have any eligible children, maybe you have dependent parents. And for dependent parents to be eligible survivors, they must be living with you and they must be your tax dependents. So basically eligible survivors are spouse, domestic partners, children, or dependent parents. You may like the children a lot more than that spouse or domestic partner, but there is no changing in the order of which these benefits are paid. Next, we're going to talk about the contingent annuitant. So this is where you do get to choose. At the time of retirement, you can name a contingent annuitant. This is available for all retirement tiers. And very important to know, the contingent annuitant can be that same person. It could be the eligible survivor. It can be a spouse. It can be a domestic partner. And I did come across somebody that I knew pretty decently that made this mistake. He thought that his wife could not be his contingent annuitant, so he named his brother contingent annuitant, and then he found out years later that he could have named his wife contingent annuitant. She was very mad, and it caused marital problems that she wasn't named contingent annuitant. He wrote letters to UC Legal to see if it could be changed, but unfortunately nothing can be changed because once you make this election, it's irrevocable. So again, the contingent annuitant can be anyone, including that eligible survivor. So what happens when you name a contingent annuitant? So what happens is if you pass away and you name a contingent annuitant, they would get a lifetime monthly benefit after you pass away. Again, this benefit is available for all retirement tiers and anyone can be a contingent annuitant. Now you may say that sounds good. Why not? Hey, if I pass away, let somebody have some money. The negative is your monthly retirement income is going to be reduced when you name a contingent annuitant. The eligible survivor that we talked about, there is no reduction. Contingent annuitant, when you name a contingent annuitant, there is a reduction. And the reduction is based on the following: your age, the age of your contingent annuitant, and the option you choose. So if there's a bigger age difference, there is going to be a bigger reduction. Also, one other thing to know is if your contingent is not your spouse and there is an age gap of greater than 10 years, some options may not be available. So at that point, I'll say the Retirement Administration has to do what's called a test, MDIB, minimum distribution incidental benefit test, to see which options are available if it is a non-spouse and there is an age gap of greater than 10 years. So also on the bottom, very important, this election is irrevocable. So I'm going to go into the next couple of screens and then I'll talk more about why this is so important. Okay, so here we go. And now I'm going to say I like this screen because now we're going to put all the different concepts together and here's where the rubber meets the road. So this is a fictitious example of what someone's retirement estimate or personal retirement profile will look like. Going from left to right, we have the monthly retirement options. We have the basic retirement income option. That was the one you saw at the retirement estimator. And then there's options A through D. Option D is available because in this example, they named their spouse or domestic partner contingent annuitant. Then we have the lifetime monthly payment to you, the UC retiree, the eligible survivor amount, which was 25%, the contingent annuitant amount, and the combined benefit. So in this case, if our retiree chose the basic retirement income, they would get $24.33 per month. If they passed away, their eligible survivor would receive 25%, $608. Now, in this case, they go, you know what? I got a good spouse. I want to give them some more money. And for that matter, if they chose option A, like Apple, instead of getting $24.33, they would get $22.19 per month. So in this case, it's a $200 a month deduction. Again, this is a fictitious example. That reduction could be more hundreds of dollars. I've seen the reduction be thousands of dollars. It all depends upon, again, your income and your age and the age of the contingent annuitant. So going back to option A, instead of getting $24.33, they're going to get $22.19. So if they pass away first, their spouse or domestic partner would get both the $608 plus the $1611. So they're going to get the same amount, $22.19, that the retiree is going to get. Now, the one thing to remember that's really, really important is what happens if the contingent annuitant passes away. So in that case, like we talked about screen before, this election is irrevocable. So you cannot go back to the basic retirement income. So this is a very, very important decision. And then we'll just go over options B, C, and D. And basically, you know, option D, which is a pretty decent option also because it's kind of like a hybrid between the basic retirement income and option A. So it's kind of a middle ground. It's the least reduction, and it provides an additional benefit beyond the 25%. In option D, instead of getting $24.33, you're going to get $23.57, and they would get $11.78 if you passed away first. I've often said that this is probably the hardest decision you're going to make. Most people know at retirement if they're going to take a monthly benefit or a lump sum cash out. Typically, the hardest question is, which option do you choose? Because it is an irrevocable decision. There is a reduction if you provide a greater benefit. And if that contingent annuitant passes away first, it is irrevocable. So it is a very, very important decision, which option you choose. I remember this goes back a couple years ago, but I had a call that came in and somebody was mad and they wanted to speak to a manager, and the call got transferred to me. And basically what happened was, at the time he retired, he named his fiance, at the time, contingent annuitant. And unfortunately, things didn't work out. And he wanted to go back to the basic retirement income. And I basically had to tell him, no, you can't do that. And he was, man, I'm going to get an attorney. I'm going to sue. You mean I'm going to have to live off of $500 a month less for the rest of my life? And I said, yeah, you know, that's how it works. And when I die, she's going to get a lifetime income for the rest of her life. And I said, yeah, you know, that's how it works. And then I said, but you know what? The only way she doesn't get, there is one way where she's not going to get any money. And then he got excited and he goes, what's that? And I said, is if you live, she gets nothing. So basically you just got to take care of yourself and live at least one day longer than she does. And she will not get this benefit because it's only payable when you die. So hopefully there was a silver lining. This person now has a newfound interest in his health and he wants to take care of himself. So he lives at least a day longer than that ex-fiance. So it is an important decision. Next example is kind of similar to the other example, but in this case, it could be that they're in the 2013 tier, 2016 tier, or it could be a 1976 tier person that does not have an eligible survivor. So again, we have the basic retirement income and we have options A through C. So in this case, if they chose the basic retirement income, they would get 2433. If they passed away, there are no survivor benefits. If they chose option A, instead of getting 2433 per month, they would get 2148. We'll say about a $300 reduction. If they passed away first, their contingent annuitant would get 2148. So again, this option, contingent annuitant option, is available for all retirement tiers, and anybody can be named contingent annuitant. There's options B and C. And again, the more you leave for that contingent annuitant, the more your reduction will be. So what we just went over was, at the time of retirement, you made some choices, and those were the survivor benefits. Now we're going to talk about death prior to retirement. So the first one is death while eligible to retire. And this one, I want to say, I got to find the right words for it. There's good news about this. And the reason why I say that there is good news is we have a lot of UC employees who've been here many, many years. And people often wonder, what happens if I pass away? Should I retire? Because I want to retire and I want to make sure my spouse or domestic partner is taken care of. I want to make sure that I choose the best option for them. And if I continue to work and I pass away and I didn't retire, what will happen? Will they be taken care of? And the reality is, first, let's talk death while eligible to retire. Real simply, that means you're eligible to retire. You have 5 years of service or more. You're age 50, 55, depending upon your retirement tier. You're eligible to retire, but you did not retire and you passed away. And the good news is, if there is a death while eligible to retire, the spouse or domestic partner gets the highest benefit available, which is option A. So just to go back a couple screens, option A again was the highest benefit available. With a death while eligible to retire, they get the highest benefit available. So if somebody were to pass away June 15th, UC would retire them as of June 16th, and the spouse or domestic partner would get the highest benefit, option A. This was good news. This goes back a couple of years too, but I met with a UC Berkeley professor in his office who had no intention of retiring, but he was concerned that if he passed away, his wife would not be taken care of. And I said, you don't have to worry about it, because again, if you pass away, she would get the highest benefit, option A. And he was happy about it. And he goes, that is great. I could work forever here and I could die at my desk. And I said, yeah, you got to die somewhere. Why not at the desk? And then it hit me. I said, you know what? If you die here at the desk, that means you're working. And not only will she get the option A, but she'll get the life insurance as well. And she will really love you. You'll be dead, but she'll say some nice things at the funeral. So that is a very important thing to know, that by continuing to work, if you do have a spouse or domestic partner, if anything were to happen to you, they would get the highest benefit available. Then we have pre-retirement survivor income. Pre-retirement means not eligible. They're not either age 50 or they don't have 5 years of service, or for that matter, if they're in the 2013, 2016 tier, they are not age 55. We don't have a lot of pre-retirement survivor income cases, but definitely there are some for sure. So with pre-retirement survivor income, there would be a percentage of the salary would be paid out depending upon the retirement tier they're in. The surviving spouse domestic partner's benefits would begin once that spouse or domestic partner reaches age 60, or for that matter, if there were eligible children, the income would start at age 18, 22 if there was a full-time student, or if there was an adult disabled child, then the pre-retirement survivor income would start at that point. Then the last classification of death prior to retirement is a refund of UCRP accumulation. So in a case where somebody has no survivor benefits and they pass away, so let's take it back, they have no eligible survivors and they pass away. So what would happen is the money that they've contributed to the retirement plan plus interest would be paid out to their beneficiaries. Last of the death portion of our program is the basic death benefit, and that is a one-time payment of $7,500 to one's beneficiaries. You always want to make sure that your beneficiaries are up to date, and to update your beneficiaries, you could do that at the UCRA's website. So now we're going to talk about UCR pre-tax and after-tax contributions, and this is something that people do get confused. When you go to the UCRA's website, there is a tab that says UCRP accumulations, and this is something that is important to know. That's the money that you've contributed towards the pension. So a lot of times people see this number and they think this is additional money that they're going to receive when they retire, and that's not the case. Basically, this is our contributions towards the pension that help fund our eventual retirement benefits. They are not paid out separately. When we retire, we'll get a monthly benefit or a lump sum cash out, but we're not going to get our money that we've contributed. We'll get the monthly benefit, the lump sum, but we won't get our UCRP accumulations. So that is important to know. Basically, the only way we would get it, and it's not a good circumstance, is down on the bottom. Any unpaid contributions are refunded to your beneficiaries upon death. What that means is, say, for instance, you've contributed $100,000 towards the pension, you retired and only $60,000 was paid out. So that unpaid contribution amount of $40,000 would be paid out. So everything that you've contributed will be paid out and will be accounted for when you retire. So that's why it is in that separate category, UCRP accumulations at the UCRA's website. So in a couple seconds, we're going to talk about the lump sum cash out. So when you retire, you have a choice of a monthly benefit or the lump sum cash out. And now we're going to go over the lump sum cash out. And what the lump sum cash out is a one-time payment instead of a guaranteed lifetime monthly retirement benefit. So again, you have the choice of a guaranteed lifetime monthly benefit or a one-time lump sum cash out. The lump sum cash out is only available for 1976 tier members, safety tier members, and 2013 modified tier members. If one does take the lump sum cash out, important things to remember. Not only are you giving up a guaranteed lifetime monthly benefit, but you do forfeit the following: health and welfare benefits, your UCRP basic death benefit of $7,500, and the survivor benefits that we just talked about. Also, sick leave is not converted to service credit when they do the calculations for the lump sum cash out. And one other thing down on the bottom, if you are a staff employee, there are more restrictive return to work rules when you take the lump sum cash out, meaning you cannot take the lump sum cash out and return to a full-time position. So if you do take the lump sum cash out, you do have the following options. It could come to you, if it does come to you immediately, it would be subject to taxes in the year in which you took the payout. So if you are thinking of taking a lump sum cash out, it makes sense to roll it over rather than have it come to you all at once and then be taxable in a very high tax bracket. So you have the ability to roll it over and defer the taxes. You can roll it over to your UC retirement savings plans, either the 403B, the 457B, or the defined contribution plan. If you don't want to roll it over to the UC plans, you could roll it over to a qualified employer retirement plan or a individual retirement account. The decision to take a lump sum cash out once it's done is irrevocable. So now we're going to talk about the retirement payment versus the employee paycheck. And I always think this is an interesting section because we'll get into it and we'll see if it's interesting. So this is a fictitious example. Somebody's got 30 years of service credit, they're 60, they make X amount of dollars, really doesn't matter. So this screen here, what we're trying to show you is when you are an active employee, and if you've looked at your paychecks recently, you know we have a lot of deductions that come out of our checks, a lot of deductions. The dollar amount on the right does not matter. This is a fictitious example. What does matter is when we're active employees, we're going to have the following deductions come out. We are going to have federal taxes come out, state taxes come out, OASDI, Social Security, that is 6.2%. Medicare, 1.45%. We have the cost for our medical plan, maybe UC retirement savings program, and then we have our retirement UCRP contributions, either 7%, 8%, or 9%, depending upon our retirement tier. So right off the bat, you got 6.2, 1.45, 8%. If you're in the 76 tier, that's 15%. And we haven't even gone into a lot of other deductions. You may also have short-term disability, long-term disability, accidental death, life insurance, dependent life insurance, legal. There are parking, union dues. There are a lot of deductions that come out of our checks. And the reason why I think this slide is important and it's so important to know is basically when you retire, all these deductions pretty much, other than the taxes, will go away. And that's important to know because you may go to the UC Ray's retirement estimator and you'll look at your estimates and you'll go, I'm making more money now than I will in retirement. And that may be true, but that's only half the equation. Yes, you may be making more money, but after all these deductions, it is very possible, depending upon how many years of service you have, you may take home more money when you're retired than when you are working because pretty much all these deductions go away. So now the person retired and now they got a retiree check. And again, the numbers on the right do not matter, but when you are retired, you see all those deductions went away. The one deduction you'll always have, I would say, is federal taxes. You may have state taxes if you live in the state of California, but we do have a lot of retirees that upon retiring, they leave the state of California, and then you may not have state taxes. One thing too, I'll get a little bit into the weeds with state taxes, just to plant the seed. If you do move out of state, you change your address at the UC Ray's website, and you're out of state, that's not going to stop California state taxes from coming out. So if you do move out of state, you change your address, you will have to go into your tax withholdings and say, do not withhold California state taxes. So if you do move out of state and change your address, you may assume, okay, I'm out of state, they're not going to withhold California state taxes. They will, unless you go in there and say, do not withhold California state taxes. And then the last deduction in this fictitious example is the cost for your medical plan. And this Garen will get into next week, but it is very possible if you are on Medicare and you have 20 years of service and you're in the Kaiser Senior Advantage or the UC Medicare Choice PPO, you may have no cost for retiree health come out of your check. So basically, just to recap, when we're working, we have a lot of deductions come out of our checks. When we retire, most of those deductions for sure will no longer come out of our checks. And that is very important to know when you're deciding to retire, that yes, you look at the income that you're currently making, look at what you'll get in retirement, but you also have to factor in that these deductions will go away. So hopefully that's good news, because most people here have not retired before, have not received a retirement check, and are not aware of all the deductions that will not come out when you retire. So, okay, so in our fictitious example, now the person's making a little bit more money in retirement, but what's important to know too is now that you're retired, you now have access to your UC retirement savings programs, your CAP account, if applicable. You may draw upon Social Security when that time is right, and you will also get the annual cost of living adjustments that we talked about. So now our person retired at age 60, now they're turning age 65, and that's good for the following reasons. One negative is you do lose the temporary Social Security supplement, but the good thing from a retirement perspective is once you turn age 65, you now sign up for Medicare, and Medicare becomes the primary, the UC coverages become the secondary, so your UC retiree costs will go down substantially in retirement when you become Medicare eligible. And then also Social Security income can begin depending upon if you choose to do so. So in a couple seconds, we're going to talk about other sources of retirement income. So now we're going to go over the capital accumulation payment, also known as the CAP account, the UC retirement savings programs, little Social Security, and other retirement systems. So the capital accumulation payment account, these were special allocations to UCRP members in the early 90s and the early 2000s. So basically, if you were a UCRP eligible employee, in those years, there were no pay increases. So what UC did is instead of the pay increases, they created this capital accumulation payment, and they put money into an account for you that is getting at a good interest rate, that is a retirement savings account. So we have a lot of different accounts, and people get confused between the UCRP, the CAP, the DCP, which is coming up. This CAP account is your money. UCRP that we talked about, that funds the pension, that's not paid out separate, but the CAP account is your money. When you retire, you need to do something with the CAP account at retirement. You can roll it over and it will be non-taxable, or you could have it paid out to you, then it would be taxable, or you could do a combination, have a little come to you, taxable, and roll over the rest. It is paid out after you receive your first monthly paycheck as a retiree. So now we're going to talk about retirement savings programs from the active employee perspective. There is the defined contribution plan, and this is important. So a lot of people do not know about the DCP plan. So if you worked here between 1990 and 2010, you do have a defined contribution plan, because I would talk to employees and I would ask them, do you have any money at Fidelity? And they would go, no, I didn't contribute anything. And I would say, actually, you do, because you worked here from 1990 to 2010. And between those years, it was a mandatory contribution. It was 2% minus $19 each month was taken out of our paychecks, and it was put into this defined contribution plan. you can continue the defined contribution plan as an employee, but however, it is done on a after-tax basis. So you do have the ability after 2010 to contribute to it, but only on an after-tax basis. Most people don't want to do after-tax, they want to do pre-tax. So they contribute to a 403B and a 457B plan. These are voluntary pre-tax contributions. UC doesn't do any matching with this because these are voluntary pre-tax contributions. For the year 2022, you could put up to $20,500 per account for the 403, for the 457B. However, if you are over age 50, there is an additional $6,500 as a catch-up provision where you could put in up to $27,000 into each account if you have that kind of financial bandwidth. So again, as an active employee, you could put money in after tax to the DC plan, pre-tax to the 403B, 457B plan. For more information on it, down on the bottom, or to check your balances, you could go to the Net Benefits website or give Fidelity a call. So when you retire and you go through the retirement process, I would say that the Fidelity retirement savings programs are not part of the retirement process because basically you don't have to do anything at retirement with your retirement savings programs. As long as your balance is greater than $2,000, everything can stay as is in retirement. Once you are retired, you can request payments. It's your money. You have access to it. You could set up systematic withdrawals, or you could have it do a one-time payment. It's your money to take out as you wish. You will always have the ability to manage your investments. You could roll money into and out of the plans. And down on the bottom, if you return to work at UC after retirement, you may be limited in taking distributions from some or all of the plans. And that sounds confusing, but I don't think it is. And the reason why I'll explain. So basically what that's saying is you've retired, you came back to work part-time at UC, and now you're on active pay status. That would mean that you cannot take money out of the UC retirement savings programs. But however, if you are age 59 and a half or more, you could take money out of your UC retirement savings programs at any time. So a lot of people don't know that. But again, if you are 59 and a half or more, even when you're working, you could take money out of your UC retirement savings programs. That is a in-service distribution that again is available. So if you've retired and you're over 59 and a half, that being limited in taking distributions is not applicable. So now we're talking about when you do take money out of the retirement savings programs, it would be taxable unless you put money in on an after-tax basis. So that's normal taxation. However, there is something called an early distribution penalty. And if you take money out before the age of 59 and a half, you could be subject to an early distribution penalty unless, and this is a big unless you're taking it out of the 457B plan. The 457B plan never has a early distribution penalty, but more importantly, we have a 55 rule at UC. If you leave UC during or after the year in which you turn 55, you are not subject to that 59 and a half rule. We are a governmental nonprofit institution, so we have a 55 rule versus that 59 and a half rule. Then down on the bottom, there is something called a minimum required distribution. So the way that I would describe it is you may never want to take money out of your retirement savings. All is well, you don't need this money, that's great. However, you will have to take money out eventually. That is the minimum required distribution. So if you are retired and you are over age 72, the government will say you do have to take money out because all these years that money was never taxed. So now the government wants to have the opportunity to tax these distributions. So there is the minimum required distributions. So now this is a new option, and this is called the deferred lifetime income option. This became available, I'll say the middle of last year. So at age 62, between 62 and 69, you can convert a portion of your retirement savings plan balances into a lifetime monthly payment that starts at age 78 and continues for your lifetime. That is what's called an annuity. So you can do this, you don't have to do this, but instead of having X amount of dollars in your retirement savings programs, you can convert it into a payable guaranteed amount for the rest of your life. There is an annual purchase opportunity. For questions about this, you definitely want to go to myucretirement.com and click on retirement income, click on strategies. And basically, this is a way of, instead of having X amount of dollars, it's a way of putting it into a guaranteed payable amount versus having to manage a given sum of money in an investment account. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Social Security. Most UC employees are eligible for Social Security. If you were hired after 1976, you are paying into Social Security unless you are a firefighter or a police officer. Now, Social Security can begin as early as age 62. However, the older you are when you take it, the greater the benefit will be. And I believe Spencer Richards from Fidelity is going to be talking about Social Security, and I think that is week 3. So you definitely want to tune in for that one. You could go to ssa.gov to take a look at your projected Social Security estimates. So some employees hired before 1976 chose not to. They had the option of not paying into Social Security, and they are not coordinated with Social Security. And then we have the safety tier members that do not pay into Social Security. However, they may be eligible for Social Security benefits from another source, previous job, spouse, ex-spouse. So if you are a safety tier member or hired before 1976, not paying into Social Security, please contact Social Security for more information. So this will be our last screen, and then we're going to take a 10-minute break. So UC does have agreements with the following retirement systems. We have with CalPERS an agreement called reciprocity, and with CalSTRS, we have a concurrent retirement. With CalPERS, we have reciprocity, and to be eligible for reciprocity, you have to have gone from CalPERS to UC or UC to CalPERS within 180 days. One thing that is important is even though you may be eligible and you came from CalPERS to UC or you went from UC to CalPERS, just because you're eligible doesn't mean you have this benefit. You actually have to fill out forms from both institutions to claim reciprocity. With reciprocity, to be eligible also, you have to retire from both systems on the same date. So again, that is important. So if you are retiring July 1st with UC, you're going to have to retire with CalPERS on that same date. With CalSTRS, we have what's called concurrent retirement. And to be eligible for concurrent retirement, you must be an active UCRP member on or after July 1st, 2002. You cannot retire from one system and continue to work in the other. Now, the main advantages of these agreements are the following. So we share service for vesting purposes. And basically what that means is to be vested, you need 5 years. So if you had 3 years at CalPERS and you came here, you only needed 2 years. If you are at UC and you have 10 years and you go to CalPERS, you are vested from day one. But I would say the main advantage of this agreement is when you retire, we use the highest salary from either system to calculate benefits for both systems. So now you retire from UC. Let's give you another example. So you worked at CalPERS for 10 years. You came to UC for 20 years, and now you're going to retire and you're making more money at UC. So when you retire on the same date for both systems. When they do the calculations for CalPERS, they're going to use your higher UC salary for their 10 years of service there. And in the end, when you do retire, you will get a check from CalPERS for the 10 years that you worked at CalPERS, and you will get a check from UC for the 20 years that you worked at UC. But again, they use the highest salary to calculate both retirement calculations. Let's take a look. So now at this point, let's see what time it is. Oh, it's perfect, 10:30. So it is 10:30. We are going to take a 10-minute break and we are going to reconvene at 10:40. Okay, welcome back, everyone. It is 10:40. So now I'm going to continue. This section is definitely a lot shorter than the first section. And then once we finish this, we're going to try to answer as many questions as you have through the Q&A. So now we're going to talk about, I'm ready to retire. Now, what do I do now? So the first thing you do is what you're doing right now, and that's attending a webinar. Thank you for attending today. There are other webinars. There's a fourth Thursday of the month, one that the Retirement Administration does, and that can be found at UCNet. You want to review your UCRP estimates. That can be done at the UC Ray's website. You want to look at your retirement savings balance. That's the Fidelity Net Benefits website. And then also you probably, and I would highly recommend meeting with a Fidelity planning and guidance consultant. They are, this is a valuable service that UC contracts with Fidelity for. It's free of charge to our members, and they do comprehensive financial planning. They're very good at what they do, and I highly recommend it. Then you also want to go to ssa.gov and look at your Social Security estimates. You want to call up other employers, see if you qualify for any previous retirement benefits from them. You may want to check with your tax or financial advisor, and always ensure your personal finances are in order. So now you're ready to retire. You're going to choose your retirement date and your separation date. And basically, it's a little bit complicated because there's now two ways to retire. You can fill out forms, which I'll call the old-fashioned way, and it's definitely longer, or you could actually go to the UC Ray's website and do it through self-service, which I would highly recommend and we'll get into. So you're going to choose a retirement date and a separation date. Separation date is your last day on pay status. If you are retiring this year, July 1st, you'll choose July 1st as the retirement date. The separation date can be no later than June 29th in order to qualify for the cost of living adjustment. If you are doing the retirement process online, the earliest you could start it is April 1st. If you are filling out a form called the RIK form, Retirement Initiation Kit form, you could submit that in March. If you are a staff employee, you need to let your department know, inform your department that you are retiring. Very common question we get is, when should I tell them? When do I have to tell them? And that is a personal call. You know, there is not a standard set time that you do have to tell them. My feeling on this is if you are 100% confident you're going to retire, I would let them know, you know, if you are confident that you're going to retire. If you're on the fence and you're not sure you're going to retire, I wouldn't be too quick to tell them I'm going to retire when you're not sure that you're going to retire. If you're an academic appointee, you need to notify your academic personnel director. So how do you start the retirement process? And again, there is two ways to do this. This can be done once you are within 90 days of the retirement process, at least the top portion. You go to UC Ray's, this is the self-service portion. You click on retirement once you're logged in. Then you go to initiate and elect retirement. Then you click on create PRP. And then you're able to put in your information, again, through self-service. I'm going to say I highly recommend this because I'll get down into the bottom one and tell you about the other process. And then you follow the prompts to create your PRP, personal retirement profile. The other way of doing it is a form, and this form can be submitted in March. So, and I would recommend submitting it in March if you're going to do it the old way, so you could get to the front of the line. They will not be able to create your package till April 1st, but you want to get it in so you're one of the first packages out. So you can fill out a form that you could get at UCNet, and the link below is there, and that is the request for a retirement initiation package. So now I'm going to get into the old way of doing it. So now you fill out a form, and then there's always, how do you send it in? Do you fax it in? Do you mail it in? Did they get my form? That's always something that is a concern. So basically, if you are retiring July 1st, the retirement administration is going to do about, I'll say 2,500 retirements is typical. So if back in the day, there would be 2,500 forms that would come in, and they would work on the first ones and get that out. So now they go in and they're working on your retirement, and then they create a package, and then they have to send it out to you. So then you have all these delays of waiting. Then, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but once you get your package, you're going to have to fill out a form and mail it back to them, or fax it back to them. Then they work through all the forms that come in, and they create what's called an election form, and then they send it back to you. Then you got to sign it and provide the right documents and send it back to them. When in reality, through self-service, you can go in, create your own personal retirement profile. You can choose your elections, click on the buttons, make your choices, and download everything. And what could take weeks from the back and forth and filling out forms and you sending it to them sending it to you, you could actually take care of it through yourself, through self-service. And the one thing I think people will probably say, well, you know, if I have questions, you could always call them if you do have questions. But as you go through the process, you could always make changes up until the point where you receive your confirmation letter, which will be after, in most cases, it will be after your retirement date. So as you go through the retirement process, you don't have to feel 100% that I'm going to do this or not do this, because you always have the ability to make changes up until your retirement date or up until the date your confirmation letter is sent. So what I just did is I fast forwarded, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up. There is the old way of doing it, and then there is self-service. So once you do get your PRP, again, you can do that through self-service, or it comes in the mail, and you will also get a retirement handbook to review. If you do have any questions, you want to call RASC up about any retirement questions and options you have. And I will say this, so we will be sending out surveys at the end of this presentation, but one of the things that I want to know, and hopefully I would like to do for our UC Davis employees is, I don't know if you've ever had to contact RASC before, but it can be a very long hold time, can be very, very long. So I'm hoping that during the retirement season, I could create some open house presentations, Zoom things where people could pop in and and I can answer retirement questions that people have, versus the alternative is waiting on hold at RASC for a long time. So if that is something that people think will be of importance, please let us know, and we'll try to do that if there is a demand for it. So going back, if you do have any questions, you could contact RASC, and once you'll have 2 election worksheets. One is a monthly worksheet to make your choices if you are going to choose the monthly benefit, and you'll have a lump sum cash out worksheet that you'll have 2 if you're going to choose a lump sum cash out. You have the ability to upload those documents at the UC Ray's website, or you could fax your worksheets in or mail the worksheets in. So the election process is, once you have received your PRP and you are using the self-service portal, you then click on retirement, initiate and elect retirement. So again, you could do this online, view your PRP, make your choices, and then follow in the prompts to make your retirement choices. Or the alternative is fill out the forms, then you have to send it into RASC, and then RASC also has to then go into the computer and create an election form for you to sign. So once you do sign your election form, you will have to submit supporting documentation. If you are married or have a domestic partner, you will need to provide either a marriage certificate or domestic partner documentation. If you are naming somebody a contingent annuitant, they would need what is called birth evidence, and birth evidence is either a copy of a passport or a copy of a birth certificate. All the documentation that is needed can be uploaded through the UC-Rays website. So once all the documents do go into the Retirement Administration Center, it goes to their fulfillment operations side. And then once those documents are in, they process it, and I'm hesitating, and it says that you'll receive a confirmation letter in about 45 days. And that's a best case scenario, because during the busy retirement season, it can be definitely longer than 45 days from the time all the required documents are in till the time you receive your confirmation letter. So that's why I think it is so important that you do the self-service if possible, because you skip all the back and forths, and then you could get in all your documentation in earlier, because it will take 45 days once all the documents are in till they do your confirmation letter finalizing your retirement. So like I mentioned to you, you always have the ability to change or cancel your election up to the retirement date or 15 days after the date in the confirmation letter, whichever is later. And typically it will be the date in the confirmation letter, because usually the confirmation letter is created after the retirement date, and then you have 15 days from that date on the letter to make any changes. So now that I'm retiring, you could sit on that couch, grow out the beard, and put on that beautiful orange bow tie and be a UC model. So what to expect from your retirement payment, with your retirement payment. So you may be biweekly, you may be monthly now, but once you are retired, retirees do get a check on the first of the month, unless it's a holiday or weekend and it's the first business day prior. Hopefully you will do direct deposit, so it will be there promptly on the first of the month. When you are retired, you will be able to see your benefit income statements on UC-Rays. So as active employees, we see everything on UC Path from an income perspective. When you are retired, you will see your benefit income and what is called a 1099-R, your tax form at UC-Rays. So it is very important to keep your information up to date at UC-Rays. So if you do move, you want to update your address there. If you have a change in phone number or email, you would update that at UC-Rays. If you want to change your tax withholdings, that could be done there. Direct deposit information can be changed there. You want to change, if you do have a need to change your UCRP beneficiary designations and contact information, you would do that at UC-Rays. The one thing that is important though is if you are changing beneficiaries at UC-Rays, that does not affect your 403B, 457B, or the defined contribution plan. If you want to make those same changes, you would have to go to the Net Benefits website to make the beneficiary changes there. Also, if you want to make health benefit changes. So I would imagine most people don't know this, but retirees have open enrollment, and Garen will talk about that next week. So the plan that you are in at retirement, you're not stuck with for the rest of your retirement. So every year, retirees, just like active employees, have open enrollment. And if you are going to make any changes as a retiree to your benefits, you would do this at the UC-Rays website. So also good to know is when you're retired, UC did not forget about you. They will send you the New Dimension newsletter telling you all the exciting things that are happening at UC It is a quarterly publication, so you can mark it down on the calendar, wait by the mailbox for your new Dimensions newsletter telling you all the exciting stuff at UC. Also, there are ways to stay connected through the internet. My UC Retirement, the UCNet website will be available. And then there are obviously important local resources like the UC Davis Retiree Center and the Emeriti and Retiree Association. So very, very valuable resource, ways of staying connected to the university. And then down on the bottom is every location does have a healthcare facilitator. We have Garen Solbach, who works with Erica Castillo, and they are there for us as well. So if you have any complex medical issues, problems with the carrier, you want to contact Garen or Erica, and they'll be with you as, they're available as active employees. They will be available for you as retirees as well. So now you've worked for UC for a long time and you were waiting for retirement. And you didn't think you were going to miss this place, but you missed the University of California so much that you want to return to work at UC after retirement, and that can be done. You can come back going down on the bottom. You could come back no greater than 40% time, 1,000 hours over a 12-month period. So there are UC retirees that do come back to work on a part-time basis. The appointment can be, again, no more than 1,000 hours over a 12-month period. If there is a need for more than 12 months, it has to go through an approval process. If you are a faculty appointment, the faculty appointments as rehired retirees are renewed annually. Then third bullet point is, so now you came back on a part-time basis, and that wasn't good enough. You want to be here all the time. So you can actually do that as long as you did not take the lump sum cash out. So if you are retired and want to come back on a full-time basis, you can suspend your UC retirement, and then you come back to a new UCRP eligible position. Then you will have, active, like you do right now, health and welfare benefits. When you come back, you will be in a new retirement tier, and you will earn service in that new retirement tier. And then when you re-retire, you have the old service, the new service, and with rehired retirees, they have to retire the day after their position ends. So that's the only little difference. Like we talked about, you have to have that 1 day in order to get the inactive day, June 30th. So you separate June 29th so you could get this inactive COLA. If you are a rehired retiree, you have to retire the day after your position ends. Okay, so like I mentioned, this section was definitely shorter than the first section. So that concludes our formal presentation. And now we're going to open it up to questions, and whatever questions you have. I think Kyle or Julianne's going to come back and we're going to go through as many questions as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Don. That was awesome. And my fingers are burning a little bit. I've been answering as many questions as I can in the chat, but I do have some that I can't answer or I don't answer as well as you do. The first is, you talked about this new online process for retirement. Do you know how many days out folks can submit initiation through UC Raise? Is it exactly 90 or is it more?
Yeah, it is exactly 90 days. If it is the 91st day, it will not be processed. So that is a basic rule, that the system won't allow the processing of retirements until we are within 90 days of that retirement date.
Now, if someone fills out, are they able to fill out a initiation online prior to 90 days?
Yeah, so if you're doing it not through self-service, you are filling out the form, you can do that typically 120 days in advance. So if you're going to be retiring July 1st and you're not going to do self-service, you're going to fill out a form, you could submit that form as early as March 1st.
But if you're doing the online version, so self-service, 90 days exactly is when you want to submit.
Yeah, that is true. And that's something hopefully that I'll say as we get into March, maybe we could do a presentation together about the retirement process.
Awesome. And then Don, I can't recall, I was answering some questions if you mentioned it, but there is a new no lapse in pay option. Do you have any details on that, or is that something that I should send a resource out after?
Yeah, I would say last year they had the new lapse in pay. It's probably going to be renewed this year for the new lapse in pay. But I think more information is coming out for the July 1st retirements about that.
Yeah, and I can confirm for sure they're renewing that program. Right now, when you look at the website, it's reflective of January 1st retirements, but they're in the process of updating that for July 1st, folks. So as this series goes on, everybody, I'll do my best to keep you updated on that. The basic nuts and bolts of it are that someone had asked earlier if, I've heard that folks' retirement has been delayed by 1 or 2 months based on pension. So the RAS came out with a program last year where if you have a basic retirement, which means you don't have a quadro, you don't have complicating factors, you're not a person that's split across, you're not
Multi-tier?
you're not multi-tier, and you're not retiring from both like CalPERS and UC at the same time, so reciprocity. You qualify for this program that allows you to ensure that first pension check comes in. And so it's most basic retirements, which means you and a spouse without any complicating factors. So the bulk of folks it does apply to, and I'll try to get you more information as we move along. And again, Don and I can discuss in greater detail if we do a follow-up session in March when it's time for you to start filling out paperwork. All right. Okay, so I have 6 questions that I pulled from the chat, and then I'll answer the ones that are, or I'll ask the ones that are coming in now. So there was a question: is the age factor proportional to a partial year? And this is with regards to calculating your HAPC.
Oh yeah, so that's a very good question. So for that matter, if you were born July 15th, every 15th of the month, your age factor would increase by a month. So I know when we go to the retirement estimator, we always show full years, 58, 62, whatever it is. But your age factor is changing each and every month based on the day that you were born.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see. If a husband is deceased, can an adult child be named as a survivor? If not, would monthly retirement income be higher?
Yeah, so going back, eligible survivors, you don't name an eligible survivor. That was dictated by the plan. That was either spouse, domestic partner. If no spouse, domestic partner. Eligible children to be eligible have to be 18, 22 if they're a full-time student or adult disabled dependent. What one can do at the time of retirement is name anybody, including a given child, contingent annuitant. However, that does reduce the amount of money that you receive. And that reduction will be based on your age, their age, and the option you choose.
There was a question in the chat. Are there any restrictions for working with a state, county, federal agency with a retirement program? So while accepting UC retirement, and I can answer that one. There aren't. Where you would run into trouble is if you tried to re-employ with the UC. And what happens there is essentially your retirement gets paused and then you go back into the workforce for the UC. Is that correct, Don?
Yeah, that's true. So going back, once you retire from UC, it has no effect on anything that you do. So if you work elsewhere, it will not affect your retirement. And like Kyle mentioned, if you retire from UC and you come back full-time, that's okay. You can do that. You just pause your retirement, you go into a new retirement tier, and then when you re-retire, you have your old service plus your new service that will make up a greater retirement when you do eventually finally retire.
Let's see. So I see there's a couple 403B and Social Security questions. We're gonna hold off on those for now, and the reason is the third section of this. So on January 28th is Spencer Richards and Kim Becker of Fidelity. They're covering Social Security as well as 403B, 457B in retirement. So they'll talk a lot about those optional savings accounts and exactly what you can and can't do with them, as well as Social Security and the basics of that. So for now, we'll focus on what Don had today. And if you want, you can send me a separate email if you're itching to get an answer, and I'll work with Spencer to get those answered for you ahead of time as well. There's a question: are retiree benefits affected if you move out of state or out of country?
Good question. That you know, when we talk about retiree benefits, I'm assuming that's health and welfare benefits. Garen's going to talk about that next week, but I could definitely answer it. So if you move out of state or out of country, you definitely can have it. You just have to go to a PPO program. PPO is good anywhere. It's good out of state. It's good internationally. So if you do move out of state, you can't have the Kaiser or the UC Blue and Gold, but you can go into a PPO and have retiree health benefits.
And I can confirm Garen will go a little bit more into detail, especially about the out-of-state portion called VIA benefits, which is what a lot of people end up needing to use out of state in retirement. Let's see. If I have 3 children, can I have more than one eligible survivor?
Eligible survivor, it depends. I think we're getting the terms. There's eligible survivor is if they're under the age of 18, 22, if they're a full-time student, or if they're adult disabled. You can only have one contingent annuitant. I'm going to get into an alternative. Okay, so this is going to be wordy, but I think this is worthy. So now you go into the retirement estimator and you name a child, and it's X amount of dollars reduction. I'm going to make this up. It's going to be $700 a month to name that given child contingent annuitant. So what you can do is say, okay, I'm going to take the basic retirement income, and instead of losing $700 to provide for the contingent annuitant benefit and only name one child, I'm going to spend $200, whatever it is, and I'm going to buy life insurance. And that way, when I pass away, I can name all 3 children beneficiaries equally, and life insurance proceeds go to beneficiaries on a tax-free basis. If you name one child, it will be taxable to that one child, and it cannot be split between the 3 children. So maybe instead of taking that reduction, you could take a lesser reduction and potentially buy life insurance and then name all the children beneficiaries.
Thank you. Let's see. There was a question about, may we please request the site again on where to find the strategy deferred lifetime option?
Yeah. You want me? I'll go back to the screen if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I may have passed it for all I know. Okay, there we go. That is the deferred lifetime income option. Basically, it's myucretirement.com. Then you go to retirement income, then strategy.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. What type of documentation is needed for a disabled child who is an adult for the benefit of as an eligible survivor?
Very good question. Basically, it's a certification from the doctor that the child is disabled. So it comes from the doctor. It is complicated. I would say you do want to contact the Retirement Administration Center, because that is something that, especially if the child is, if you pass away and the child has intellectual disabilities, that would be something that would be hard, almost impossible for the child to do on by themselves. So therefore, you want to set that up with them, and you want to do that while you're still alive. So that would be through the Retirement Administration. And again, that would be doctor's information. And that's something that you could reach out to me and I could talk more about it.
There's a couple inactive COLA questions, and I want to respond to this. So the first is, and I can handle this one, Don. What is the retirement date and separation date you suggest for a July 1 retirement to receive the inactive COLA? And the answer to that is June 29th this year. You separate June 29th, and then you have 1 day of separation. So that would be June 30th. And then July 1st would be your retirement date. The reason for that is that June 30th day becomes that inactive day where you're neither employee nor retiree, which activates the inactive COLA and gives you a nice little bump going into retirement. So if nothing else, if you're a July 1 retiree, write down that you want to separate on June 29th and retire on July 1st if you want to receive that inactive COLA.
Yeah, and I'll say this, basically, you have to miss 1 day of work. That is the thing. So you may have an alternative schedule. So your last day of work may be the 27th. It doesn't have to be the 29th, but it has to be June 29th or before. You have to be inactive for at least 1 day.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. See, there's a very specific question. I'll turn 65 in August, but I want to retire then, but considering the inactive COLA and that they wouldn't receive the COLA the following year if they retired in August, would it make sense to retire 2 months earlier? I think honestly,
let me get into that one.
Yeah,
that one's pretty straightforward, and I'm going to say a little bit easy. To me, it's a no-brainer that you retire July 1st, especially if you're in the 1976 tier, because you've already maximized your age factor. If you're in the 1976 tier, once you reach age 60, turning age 65 has no financial benefit. And even if, let's just say you're in the 2013, 2016 tier, and you want to get that additional month or two of age factor, that would, in almost every case, wouldn't be as beneficial as missing out on 2 COLAs, having a month or two of age factor versus missing out on the inactive COLA, retiring August 1st, September 1st, and not getting the retiree COLA the following year. So in almost every case, you want to retire July 1st.
Thanks, Don. We have a question. So this relates to an earlier question. I was having a back and forth with this individual. So if someone were to separate this year and wait a year to retire officially, that would increase their age factor, correct?
Yeah, but yeah, it's a tough one. Assuming that they're say they're 59 years old and they want to retire at age 60 to maximize the age factor, but there's a negative. So in order to be eligible for retiree health benefits, you have to retire within 120 days. So if a person left but did not retire within 120 days of leaving, when they eventually did retire, they would not be eligible for health and welfare benefits.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. I should have also mentioned that person told me that they had 5 years of service credit. So
okay,
they wouldn't be eligible for health benefits as it stood.
Gotcha.
Let's see. So just to confirm, if living in a state with no income tax, you won't owe taxes to the state of California, but you need to go into UCRP to change the withholding once you have a new out-of-state address.
Yeah, I'll agree. I'm not technically a tax person, but what you said is accurate. If you are in a different state and you do not want to withhold California state taxes, changing your address does not change your tax withholdings. You specifically have to go into tax withholdings and request do not withhold California state taxes.
Let's see. This person says, if I retire in September of this year, when would I receive my first COLA?
Okay, so it would be July 1st, 2024.
Thanks, Don. Let's see, what happens to your vacation time when you retire if it's unused?
Yeah, so vacation pay, unused vacation and CTO time is paid out on your final paycheck.
Awesome, thanks. See, we've got another one that was about their birthdays in September. Wouldn't it be better to retire after? Again, for your primary benefits or the primary payment benefit, they take into account your age as well as the months of your age. So you're really only sacrificing 2 months of age factor as opposed to an entire year if you wait until September. And like Don said, you have to weigh the value of the COLAs in that. Someone asked if they can get the inactive COLA if they retire June 1st versus July 1st.
No, if you retire June 1st, you are not inactive as of July 1st. So the inactive COLA is only awarded July 1st if you are inactive. And if you retire June 1st, you are retired.
Thanks, Don. Is UC life insurance available in retirement?
Yeah. There is what's called a conversion portability option, but it tends to be very, very expensive. You want to reach out to Prudential to find out the various options, but I'll say I've been here over 15 years and I don't recall any retiree, not to say that none have done it, but it's very, very few people do convert the life insurance when they retire because it tends to be very, very expensive.
Don, what's the COLA looking like this July?
That's a good question. That God knows. This is record inflation this year. So I think it's going to be interesting. It will be announced late March, but typically it's 2%, but this year it wouldn't surprise me if we got a record COLA.
All right. Let's see. This is a specific reciprocity question. If you know, Don, great. If not, we can follow up or have this person follow up for some resources. I was working with the state for more than 20 years. Now I work with the UC, but there was a gap of more than 120 days or 180 days between the two, which I think is important when it comes to reciprocity. Oh, yeah. So I'm starting from the beginning. Is there nothing I can do to fix this?
Yeah, no, we have the reciprocity agreement with CalPERS, but in order to qualify for this benefit, you got to go from one place to the other within 180 days. So really that agreement that we have is not applicable in this case.
What is the service credit max out number?
Yeah, there isn't, but once you are age 60, for example, with 40 years of service, you're entitled to 100% of your HAPC. But we have people here. I retired somebody who had 58 years of service credit. So, once they got to 40 years of service credit, they were eligible for 100% of their HAPC. But if you continue to work after you've reached that 100% level, your retirement could still go up if your salary is going up. So there could be a benefit though.
Awesome. let's see. If I don't want to wait to retire, okay, this is the same answer as the previous one. If I don't want to wait to retire until next July and I retire in September, when will I receive my first COLA? The answer to that is July 1st of 2024. Let's see. Let's see, you say separation date June 29th or before. How many weeks before are allowed for this year's COLA once I met my previous 10 years of service? So this is assuming they want to retire July 1st, but how long can they separate before that and still qualify for the inactive COLA?
Yeah, you want to do it, I would say as close to the 29th as possible, because there are negatives and it gets complicated, but just a silly example, you left UC May 1st, but you didn't want to retire because you wanted to get this inactive COLA. But by doing that, you gave up income for the month of May and June. And also there's the issue of health insurance as well. So you want to do it as close, but there is not if you are inactive come July 1st, you will get the inactive COLA, but there are disadvantages of not being close to the 29th, such as foregoing retirement pay and potentially retiree health benefits.
Thanks, Don. If someone separates from UC before age 50, are they still able to retire after age 50 at a later date and receive a pension?
Oh, yeah. No, if you have 5 years of service, you are eligible for a pension starting at age 50, depending upon your retirement tier. Between 50 and 60, even with you leaving UC, your benefit will more than double. So you'll want to look at your retirement estimates. But once you are vested with 5 years of service, they cannot take that away. So it is an eligible benefit. And when you take your benefit, just depends upon when you want to do it. And in order to maximize it, you want to be as old as possible up till age 60.
And as a reminder on that, if you don't retire within 120 days of your separation date, you do forfeit health benefits, assuming you've met that 10-year mark. So just keep that in mind as well as you're debating that next step. This person has, this is kind of the same question. It's another one of the, I'm not 60 yet. Do I wait 2 extra months? And I think we've answered that at this point. Let's see. If you are collecting retirement and then you die within 5 years or so of collecting it, what happens to your unused dollars if you don't have a spouse but have an adult child who's already named as a beneficiary?
Okay, so basically it's just a matter of, it goes back to, if you don't have any eligible survivors, then the payments stop. But if you've contributed, we'll say 100,000 to the pension program and you've only received 80,000, that unpaid balance of 20,000 in this case would be paid out to the beneficiaries. But typically we use up our UCRP contributions pretty quickly. So if you've been retired for 5 years and you don't have any eligible survivors, no contingent annuitant, then those retirement benefits would basically end.
Awesome, thank you. I'm trying to answer one via chat. Will the COLA change for you if you're out of state?
No, the COLAs are the COLAs. The COLAs are based on the consumer price indexes for the Los Angeles, San Francisco metropolitan areas, and they're universal. So no matter where you live, the COLAs will be the same.
Someone asked why there were 2 different COLAs last year. Is that going to happen every year now? And I'm not sure what they're referring to. Maybe you can weigh in on that one, Don.
It's, it depends. And last year, the COLA was 1.75%. But if you have been retired for years, there is what's called a COLA bank. So, and that's, it's complicated, but if the COLA was 2.5% in a given year and they gave you 2%, that 0.5 additional was banked in your COLA bank. So in case that the cost of living was 1.5 the next year, you would still get that same 2%. So once a person has been retired for years, there is a COLA bank. So it's possible that even though for the COLA was 1.75, they'll give you more if you have a COLA bank. But if you're a recent retiree, there is no COLA bank. So if the COLA is 1.75, you'll get 1.75.
Awesome. This person says the term inactive is confusing. Can you clarify what it means?
Yeah, inactive means no longer working for UC. It's complicated. There's the inactive member. That is somebody who has 5 years of service or more, and they left the University of California. They are an inactive member. When we talk about the inactive COLA, that means, let's go back. June 29th is your last day of work. So now you've separated, you told UC, this is my last day. But you didn't retire because you're retiring July 1st. So that in-between date between working and retiring, you are inactive, not working, not retired. That's inactive, and that qualifies you for the inactive COLA.
Awesome, thanks. Can a trust be listed as a contingent annuitant?
No. A contingent annuitant has to be a given person who, I'll say, has to eventually pass away so the benefit can end. But once the contingent annuitant is named and the money goes to that person, it could go into a bank account that is a trust. So the trust itself can't be named, but the money that goes to that person can go into a trust.
Thanks, Don. Can you provide any information on service buybacks? I left the UC for 2 years and came back. I'm currently at 27 years of service. How does this work?
Yeah, that's not a buyback. And basically, I'll try to explain it later or now. What a buyback is, if you are on a approved leave of absence, you're on a disability for 3 months, 6 months, you're not being paid by UC, that is buybackable. But if you leave UC for 2 years and work somewhere else, that cannot be bought back because that is not a approved leave of absence, which can be bought back.
Thanks, Don. Are there other ways to use sick leave hours besides converting them to service credit?
I'm going to say no. The reason why I say that, unless you're legitimately sick. I mean, if you're on a disability and you're sick, you can use those sick leave hours before you retire, but you can't, and that's funny because I usually say this, but if you're retiring July 1st and you got 2 months of sick leave and 2 months of vacation, you can't call your boss up in March and say, hey, I'm going to be sick for the months of March and April, and then I want to use vacation for May and June. You can't sick out unless you are legitimately sick, but you can vacation out, which is another topic unto itself, with managerial approval.
This is a question I don't know that you'll be able to answer, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. If this year's COLA were to be 6%, does it make sense to retire this year at age 59 rather than wait till next year at age 60?
That's a good question. Oh my goodness. It's an option. It is. Because retirement is much more, it is dollars and cents, but are you ready to retire this year? Do you have 20 years of service or more as it pertains to health and welfare benefits? you would have to do the retirement estimates. I think that's a good, that's the way that I would advise you, is come April, once it's announced, do an estimate for July 1st, 2021, then do an estimate for July 1st, July 1st, 2022, and then do an estimate for July 1st, 2023. But remember, when you do that estimate for July 1st, 2023, it's not going to have the inactive COLA, but I would then add roughly 2% more for the inactive COLA for 2023 and see where it stands.
And the do not exceed number on the COLA is 6%, correct?
Correct.
And I just put COLA information in directly from the retirement handbook. If folks want to read that definition as well, you're more than welcome. Let's see. Do we get COLAs every year in retirement?
I would say historically, again, it's based on the consumer price indexes, and then there is the COLA bank. So I would say there hasn't been a year that people have not received COLAs. So I would think the answer will be yes, but it's not a guaranteed yes.
Well, this is an important one. Can you use a vacation day as your last day of work? Will that change anything in the process? And I think it's important here, Don, to clarify that the day that you are completely separated as opposed to your separation day still will exist in this.
Oh, yeah. So this used to be a common question we get is, do I physically have to be at work on my last day? So the answer is no. You can vacation out. For example, you don't have to physically be at work. So if you're in Europe on vacation, you don't have to fly back to Davis and Sacramento to be at work on June 29th. So you can use a vacation day or vacation days prior to your retirement, but that day should be, that last day on pay status should be no later than June 29th.
And just so folks are aware, vacationing out is an option. However, it requires supervisor approval, just like normal vacation days. So you have to keep that in mind. If you're sitting on 3 months of vacation, you need to work with your department to make sure that meets operational needs. So a lot of times folks will be able to do that, but you do need to check in because there are circumstances that sometimes that's not possible. And any unused vacation is paid out at the end on your last paycheck as well. Let's see. Is a COLA cumulative year to year?
Yeah. So the way that I would describe it is you get X amount of dollars in retirement, and if there's a 2% COLA, it will just make your retirement, it will compound from year to year, increasing your retirement.
There was another question. I think you answered this one earlier, but I am going to put in the service credit purchase guide for folks that are interested in reading more about the sort of buyback process and what makes you eligible for it. Again, it's that very specific scenario that Don laid out. There's a question, what if June 29th falls on a weekend and July 1st is the following week? The last day, depending on what year this is, the last day would be basically you'd need to have one working day of separation prior to July 1st. So let's say that July 1st is on a Monday. So you have the 30th is a Sunday, the 29th is a Saturday, the 28th is the Friday, the 27th in that case would be the day that you would want to separate. Is that correct, Don?
Yeah, no, that is 100% accurate. It does change. I think we're good for the next couple of years with the June 29th, but we'll be doing these presentations throughout the years. So as things change, we'll change that separation day as applicable for the given year.
Someone actually asked, and we're not quite there yet, but they asked if these slides would be available. We had sent them out to you beforehand, or at least a link to where they are on our website, but I'm going to put that back in the chat. And everyone in attendance today is going to receive an email from me shortly after this session's over that sends you a bunch of resources that you can use. It also links our transitioning to retirement workshop page where Don's slides are. And then by next Wednesday, the entire recording of the session will also be uploaded there. Let's see. Okay, this one I don't know. Is there any benefit? Oh, okay. They're saying I was reading it as an acronym. They were asking about vacation time, but it said capital VAC. Is there a benefit to cashing out your vacation time versus claiming your vacation before separation? I think basically the big point here is your vacation and cashing out versus claiming vacation before your separation. It depends on if you want the time off. Essentially, you're going to get paid out for your vacation when you retire if there's some left over. It is taxed heavily, and I'm not sure exactly what the tax rate is for that. Don, do you know?
No, but I know it's taxed as a bonus, which is above our normal wages.
Yeah, and honestly, it comes down to your preference as to whether you want to use it, and also again supervisor approval if you want a vacation out versus finish working and then have vacation left over.
Do you want me to expand upon that, Kyle?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so what a lot of people do is, and this gets complicated, but let's just use the 403B, and we'll assume that somebody is paid monthly. So now they retire in July 1st, and they go into their Fidelity account June 2nd. So they receive the June check, and their next check is going to be their final check. They could go into their Fidelity account and then change their contribution level to, I'm going to use, for example, 70%. So now on their final check, they're going to have all outstanding wages plus vacation time. On that final check, that 70% will go straight into the 403B, assuming they're over age 50, up until the maximum limit of 27,000. So if you have the ability to contribute up to 27,000 and you haven't hit that maximum, then you can, in essence, roll it over by having on your final check as much as 70% of that final check go into your 403B, in essence, rolling over that unused vacation time.
Yep, and those are pre-tax contributions, so it's a good way to not pay taxes on that extra time. Thanks, Don. I should have mentioned that myself. That's great. See, is the inactive COLA limited to a maximum of 2%?
Yeah, the inactive COLA. Oh, that's a good point. Back to the 6% question. It does say that the inactive COLA is 2% maximum.
Yeah, so the COLA for those who have retired more than 365 days before, or 365 days or more before this July 1st might get that mega COLA, but the inactive COLA will still be 2%, theoretically.
Yeah.
Question, can you separate on April 29th and retire on July 1st?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. You don't want to do that most likely, because then you gave up retirement pay for the months of May and June, 2 months to get the inactive COLA, and then your health insurance is no longer in force as of May 1st in June, unless you have insurance elsewhere. You're without insurance for 2 months, or you COBRA, it's going to be very expensive. So at that point, it probably makes most sense, if your last day is April something, to retire thereafter versus waiting 2 months to get the inactive COLA.
Awesome. I think that is all the questions in the chat, which is awesome. Does anyone have any parting questions that they need to ask? So let's see, how many days after you retire can you return to work for UC Davis? And that's assuming this means a partial appointment.
Yeah. Typically, you have to receive your first retirement check. So if you retired July 1st, if you receive your first retirement check August 1st, you could come back as early as August 1st.
At a 43% appointment.
Yeah, 43%.
Awesome. Well, I think that pretty much does it. We're getting a lot of, there's a question about the retirement package online. Can we work on it little by little ahead of time and save our work before submitting? I don't believe so. I don't think the form saves, does it, Don?
No. Yeah, with the only thing you could do before time is submit the form, the retirement initiation form, but they won't accept it, for a July retirement. They won't accept it until March.
Thanks. And then are you no longer able to contribute to Fidelity accounts once retired?
Correct. That would be correct. Only as an active employee.
Awesome.
And that is the way that I would describe it is to be, you cannot have your retiree check go into your 403B, but if you have a Fidelity account and you're retired and you want to roll over other retirement savings to Fidelity, you can.
Yeah. And then the question before, so no, the online piece, you cannot submit your retirement initiation before April 1st if you're using the online portal. And again, that's the way, personally, I would recommend that you submit it because there isn't someone on the back end manually inputting it. You are the person directly putting it into the system. So recommending April 1st, if you're planning for a July 1st retirement, you complete that form online. And I can say with a high degree of confidence, there are less pieces there. Let's see. So I'm going to leave the other Fidelity questions for Spencer's session in 2 weeks. Don, is there a resource for reciprocity on the UC Net website? I'm sure there is.
Yeah. Just Google UC reciprocity, and there is the reciprocity fact sheet and the reciprocity form.
Grab that right now. So I can I'm gonna have to grab that link later. What is wrong with submit online form on May 1st? So let me touch on that. So the reason 90 days is important and you want as much as possible is to ensure your first pension check comes on time. There's the initiation form is not the only step of the process. So you submit the initiation form. That's going to generate an election packet for you. You're going to have to submit those elections, and then you're going to get a final confirmation that you need to sign and return as well. So there's multiple steps to the retirement process, and you want to be submitted a full 90 days ahead of retirement with the first form so that the process can move along. There's a question, how do you decide if one takes a lump sum if both work at UCD? That is a question for a financial advisor. It's a very personal circumstance, and it depends on your total financial outlook, and not something that at least I don't feel comfortable on that piece. Don, if you want to weigh in, you can, but I think meeting with a professional when that's important.
Yeah, no, what you're saying is 100% accurate. You do want to consult a even Spencer, a financial planner, but it is a viable option. When you have two UC employees, one retires, takes the monthly benefit, and they have the health insurance, then the other one takes the lump sum. That I could see, under certain circumstances. I wouldn't say that's good or bad for that matter. But when you got two UC employees, you got the health insurance taken care of. If the other one takes the lump sum, I could see that. It just depends on how you're going to invest it, et cetera, if it's a good move. But that is a viable option under those circumstances.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. So I will wrap us up since we've had a great session today, a lot of good questions. We'll include, Don, with your permission, we can put your email info on our transitioning to retirement website, if that's okay.
Yeah. And keep in mind too, that if I get a lot of, please allow me some time to get back to you, because it's very possible I'll get a lot of questions. So if I don't get back to you right away, and it's been a week or so, feel free to re-email me, but I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, and the same on that goes for Julianne and I. These weeks we do get a bit inundated with questions, and we want to make sure we get you the appropriate answer. And just so you know, when you email the Retiree Center, if we are not the best resource for something, our goal is always to reroute you to the person that is. Julianne and myself are not retirement counselors per se. We do know a lot about the retirement system, but some questions, specifically when you get into semantics on, your family members and how this specific healthcare thing may impact them, we'll send you to Garen. If you have specific questions about 457, 403B, we want the expert, the person that works in this, Spencer, to answer that for you. If you have a high level, super complicated reciprocity question, Don is going to be the person that we try to get an answer through, and we'll work on that. So just know we sometimes direct you to different resources, and it's not that we want to ignore you, it's that we want to make sure we get you the right answer. So with that said, there's one more important thing I want to pitch one more time, and that's that in the next, I'd say half hour, maybe earlier, you're going to get an email from me that has a survey in it. That survey is going to ask you about today's session. It's going to ask you to rate me. It's going to ask you to rate Don. And it's also going to ask you, I think it's 6 questions at the beginning of the survey about where you stand in your retirement. So it'll ask the questions you had in the poll, just quick multiple choice. And then it'll give you an opportunity to write any outstanding questions you have that we can help get answered next week or even earlier, if possible. So make sure you fill that out. It's really important to us. The data is what we need in order to keep these sessions alive and make sure we can continue to bring them to you. So it's really helpful if you fill that out. But otherwise, Don, thank you so much for being with us. It's amazing that you're back on the Davis team with us. And we're certainly looking forward to more presentations moving forward. And thank you for everything you did today. Thanks to Julianne for her work behind the scenes. And thank you all for joining us. This has been great. And we're looking forward to seeing you next Friday. If you have not signed up, remember, you need to sign up on Zoom as well as LMS. So the LMS will kick you a Zoom link. You got to register for both. And the reason for that is we need your full names so that when we go to code this in LMS for you and your attendance, we get it right. Ready? Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Don, we'll see you in a little over an hour.
Yes.